Comey is under fire.
And James Comey, in my view, should be held accountable and put behind bars for this.
Trump speaks out about his latest threat, while Kash Patel makes a bombshell announcement.
He just gave up a big nugget.
Plus, Senator Mullen explodes on the media. A Wisconsin judge tries to toss her own case, and there's silence on the world stage. Secretary Rubio speaks out after Putin is a no-show for peace talks. Let's get right to it with a post that is sparking outrage and raising serious questions. Former FBI Director James Comey shared this on social media. It's a picture of shells that spells out 8647. And anyone with a pulse knows 86 is slang for eliminate, and 47 refers to Donald Trump as the 47th president. Comey captioned it, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." Subtle? Some say not so much. Then suddenly Comey backpedals. He posts to Instagram claiming ignorance and writing, quote, "I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associated those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down." I'm calling BS, and so is Tulsi Gabbard.
So for Comey to think that we, the American people, are so stupid as to think that he, as a former FBI director, former prosecutor, and someone who clearly pays attention to what's going on, would believe his lie that he didn't know what this actually was calling for, the dangerousness of this, Jesse, cannot be underestimated. When we have 2 assassination attempts on the president's life, this is the guy who's issuing a hit on President Trump, the president that the American people voted for. And James Comey, in my view, should be held accountable and put behind bars for this.
President Trump isn't buying it either. Watch.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant.
And that leaves some asking, is this revenge?
Do you agree with that, that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know what your thoughts are on this cryptic message, because I know some are arguing there's a trend.
I went and looked at his Instagram account. Just a few posts down from the 8647 was his endorsement of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, which he did with a seashell. But if a guy had previously posted a political message with a seashell, and then he put a new political message up with seashells, maybe, possibly, he did it intentionally, which he clearly did.
So here's the post that Clay Travis was referring to. And, I don't know, maybe it's time for the FBI to return the favor and do a dawn raid on his house. Be like old times. Here's a Washington Post article that was written by yours truly, James Comey, back in 2024. He said, quote, "We should always worry about political violence, especially when violent rhetoric and behavior are embraced, even celebrated by one of our political parties and its leader." Looks like he should follow his own advice. Here's the president on what he wants to happen next.
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this, I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision.
Okay, now check this out. This is another post that went up around the same time. I didn't know who the guy was. I looked him up. He's a podcaster who claims he's trying to save democracy. And he's now trying to spin 86 as a code for impeach. Let's not forget, this president has already survived 2 assassination attempts. These men know exactly what they're doing, and it's dangerous. As for the FBI, Kash Patel came out and made an explosive announcement. Wait for it, because it's what he says towards the end that will have you stunned.
Look, the FBI is 38,000 when we're fully manned, which we're not. In the National Capital Region, in the 50-mile radius around Washington, D.C., there were 11,000 FBI employees. That's like a third of the workforce. A third of the crime doesn't happen here. So we're taking 1,500 of those folks and moving them out. Every state's getting a plus up. This FBI is leaving the Hoover Building because this building is unsafe for our workforce, and we want the workforce.
You just gave up a big nugget
we
there.
want the American men and women to know, if you're going to come work at the premier law enforcement agency in the world, we're going to give you a building that's commensurate with that. And that's not this place.
So the FBI is going to be moving out of the J. Edgar Hoover Building in Washington. That agency has been in there since 1975. Now to Wisconsin, where a county judge is under fire, and this time, she's the one facing charges. Hannah Dugan is accused of helping an illegal immigrant escape authorities by sneaking out the back door. She's charged with obstructing a U.S. agency and concealing an individual to prevent an arrest. Now, the penalties include up to 6 years in prison and fines of up to $350,000. Her attorneys, however, they filed to dismiss the case entirely. They argue that she's protected by judicial immunity.
Judicial immunity covers what you do in the courtroom. It doesn't cover robbing a bank. It doesn't cover aiding and abetting someone escaping capture. You cannot obstruct an investigation whether you have on black or orange or any other color. So her black robe immunizes her from decisions made in her official capacity, but not saying, hey, take the back stairwell so you can avoid ICE agents. There's no defense for that.
Ironically, she's citing the last case involving President Trump on presidential immunity and saying, look, her motivations don't matter. She was acting as a judge. I don't see that. I don't see how you can argue that, because it raises the question, well, what else could she do? Could she have redirected or misled court staff? Could she have hidden this person in her office for a day? I mean, at what point does she stop acting as a judge?
She's now using President Trump's argument for immunity. The same one I bet she mocked when he invoked it during his own legal battles.
The federal officers wanted to arrest him in the hallway. So it's unclear how she can claim that what she did was maintaining order in her courtroom. They were waiting until after the court was over, the session was over, and they had cooperated with her, including going to the chief judge, who, by the way, told them, of course you can arrest him in the hallway.
Dugan's trial will start on July 21st and is expected to last about a week. Let's turn now to the Middle East, where the president just wrapped up an epic tour. It was so good, even the sword dancers in Qatar were dancing to Trump's playlist. You know how the saying goes, the side having the most fun is usually the one that's winning. Here's Chris Wright, Trump's Secretary of Energy, on the historic trip.
It has been truly inspiring. The leaders of the Middle East we have met with have been truly gobsmacked by this president, who's got an optimism, a passion. He's focused on peace and prosperity, and he humbly listens to every one of them to understand their concerns and their issues, engages in an on-the-spot dialogue. In fact, the ending the Syrian boycott, that was a result of just universal feedback of saying, hey, this is the right thing to do. We got to give Syria a chance. All the allies in the region believe it, and the president clearly saw, stand with your allies. Let's give it a try. It sounds like the right move. And bam, decision made, crowd erupts.
President Trump just took a bold leap of faith, and it's paying off. His focus, a strategy as simple as it is powerful, building stronger nations by co-investing in shared prosperity. Because when people are financially secure, peace tends to follow. It's smart. Nobody wants to bite the hand that feeds them. And judging by the level of ceremony and respect we saw on this trip, our allies in the Middle East are clearly glad to see that 47 is back in office. I wanted to share this post with you from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt because I truly think it captures the impact of this trip. She wrote, quote, "This morning at breakfast in Doha, my waiter told me to thank President Trump for him. I asked him why. He told me he is from Kashmir and he had been unable to return home in recent weeks due to the India-Pakistan conflict. But he was just notified that he's now able to return thanks to the ceasefire mediated by President Trump, VP, and Secretary Rubio. He said President Trump is not receiving enough credit for literally preventing a nuclear war." Now, even some Biden officials are admitting President Trump's strategy in the Middle East is working. Axios got rare candid comments from inside the Biden administration. Listen to this. One admitted, quote, "Gosh, I wish I could work for an administration that could move that quickly." Another said, quote, "When this personal instincts coincide with the national interest, it's pretty remarkable how quickly he can move." Then on the topic of Syria, former Biden official Ben Rhodes, he said, quote, "It's so clearly the right decision. I don't know why Joe Biden didn't do this." Those are the kinds of statements that don't get aired much, but they tell you that something is shifting. And as the wins stack up, the media tries to change the subject, obsessing over whether Trump will accept a plane from Qatar. That is until Senator Markwayne Mullin walked in and shut it down. Love this guy. Watch this.
Senator, could I get your reaction to Trump doubling down on accepting the $400 million jet from Qatar?
I have zero issue with it.
You have zero issue with it?
Zero.
Do you think it raises ethics concerns or national security concerns?
You ever been to New York and saw the Statue of Liberty? That was a gift too.
Do you have any safety concerns about, this coming from a foreign government? And
So you know anything about safety and our security and our intel? Do you know anything about it? So do you think we're really going to take a plane and not strip it and put all the Air Force One stuff in it, even if it came brand new from the factory? If you don't understand that basic knowledge, then you probably shouldn't be reporting on it.
Mullin then took it one step further and dropped this truth bomb on Jake Tapper.
What the media isn't telling you, and what no one's talking to you about, is this same 747 has been in negotiations for a year. The Biden administration is the one that started these conversations. It didn't start underneath the Trump administration. Why? Because we need a backup for Air Force One. Because right now, the President of the United States is flying around on a 40-year-old plane, and there is no backup for it. The backup we had, the airframe started having structural issues. No one's discussing that part. They're just discussing that the deal ended with President Trump. Maybe the media doesn't know. Maybe I'll give them a pass. Maybe you didn't know. I'll give you the pass. I'll give you a pass on that one. But the fact is, this conversation started with Qatar, with Biden a year ago.
So Biden wanted the fancy plane first. And somehow that was okay. The media didn't bat an eye when the Biden family profited off Ukraine and China. But now they want to sound the alarm over Trump? Makes no sense. All right, meanwhile, real stories are being ignored, including the disappointing news from Turkey. Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, they broke down. Zelensky showed up, Putin didn't. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio on what it will take to move forward.
Nothing's going to happen at this point. Given everything we know after months of working on this, nothing's going to happen until President Trump sits across the table from Vladimir Putin and puts it on the line and puts it on the table. I think that's the only chance we have at peace at this point, given everything we've seen over the last few weeks. I don't know what the date or the place of that is yet, but that's really the only chance at this point.
Even as peace seems to slip away, Trump's commitment has not changed.
He wants to see more building and less bombing. In essence, he wants to see us building things up, not destroying things. The president, frankly, is a lover of peace. This is a person that wants to stop wars and prevent wars and end wars. That's what the president endeavors to do. In fact, he openly has said, and he said it in the speech, that he wishes we didn't have to spend all this money on the military. We could spend it instead on creating wealth and prosperity and human development. Obviously, that's not the way the world works, but that's what he hopes we can achieve.
So while the media clings to tired narratives and petty distractions, the reality on the ground tells a completely different story, one of leadership, diplomacy, and results. President Trump, he's not just showing up, he's reshaping the global stage. He's restoring American strength and proving that peace through prosperity isn't just a slogan, it's a strategy. Up next, RFK Jr. exposes Democrats in a heated exchange on Capitol Hill. Plus, I break down the wins President Trump received while in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Click on the video you see now on your screen, and I hope to see you over there.